If that's your civilization's peak culinary achievement, I'm shocked your species survived to develop spaceflight, Kael'thas said, staring at the pot on the burner like it had personally insulted his genetic line. Marcus Webb didn't look up from his prep work. He'd been a high school culinary teacher for 12 years before the Interspecies Academy recruitment, and he'd learned long ago that the best response to arrogance was competence. He kept dicing onions with the kind of precision that suggested he'd heard worse insults than this during a Tuesday morning. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, "You know," Marcus said, his knife making steady contact with the cutting board, "I've taught 16-year-olds who said the same thing about my food. Difference is, they couldn't upload their contempt to a galactic education database." The classroom went silent. Not the good kind. Dr. Zara, the Tevnarian food scientist observing this catastrophe, made a sound like grinding metal, apparently their version of a disappointed sigh. She stood at the observation window of the Academy's demonstration kitchen, her three-fingered hands folded across her torso in what could only be described as academic disdain. Behind her, Principal Sinara looked like she was calculating the political fallout of a human-alien incident before lunch period ended. "Mr. Webb," Dr. Zara's translator rendered her voice with crystalline precision, each word a judgment. The educational protocols specifically requested cultural sensitivity during this exchange. The Tevnarian delegation arrived to showcase proper nutritional science. Instead, we're observing your species' reliance on temperature manipulation and spice compounds, hardly the foundation of advanced civilization. Marcus finally glanced up, and there was something dangerous in his smile. Not hostile, just the kind of smile someone wore when they knew something you didn't. "Right, so here's the thing about spices," he said, returning to his work. "You see this?" He held up a dried chili pepper, its wrinkled red surface catching the kitchen lights. Capsaicin, a compound that registers as a neurotoxin on your equipment, a chemical irritant by your measurements. You know what humans did with it? We learned to love it. Millions of years ago, our ancestors figured out how to metabolize something that should have burned our mouths raw, and instead of avoiding it, we started seeking it out. We spiced it into every culture, every continent. That's not primitiveness, Dr. Zara, that's adaptation. Kael'thas laughed, a high, chittering sound that made the water glasses vibrate. Adaptation to self-inflicted suffering? How perfectly barbaric. Tevnarian nutrition science has evolved beyond such chemical abuse. We achieve optimal metabolic efficiency through synthetic nutrient matrices. No fire risk, no painful sensory disruption, no... He gestured vaguely at the pot. Primitive combustion. "Of course you do," Marcus said, and now he was actually smiling, not at Kael'thas, but at something Kael'thas wouldn't understand for another 40 minutes. Fire doesn't really fit with the whole advanced civilization aesthetic, does it? He dumped the diced onions into the pot, where they hit hot oil with an aggressive sizzle. The entire kitchen filled with aroma, cumin, garlic, peppers already roasted and ground. It was the smell of something that had survived thousands of years because humans had eaten it, survived on it, fought for it. Vexathul, Kael'thas's quieter companion, actually leaned forward at the observation window. There was something in the movement, a question mark instead of a period. "Dr. Zara," Principal Sinara ventured carefully, "perhaps we should allow the demonstration to continue. The Cultural Exchange Committee specifically is making a profound error," Dr. Zara cut her off smoothly. "But yes, I suppose we should observe the complete failure of your species' nutritional practices to generate proper scientific data. For the report." Marcus pulled out a massive can of kidney beans, another of crushed tomatoes, and what looked like 3 different varieties of hot peppers. He began assembling them with the confidence of someone who'd done this 10,000 times and knew exactly what was about to happen. "You want to know the real difference between your science and ours?" Marcus asked, his eyes on his work but his voice carrying easily through the kitchen. He added the tomatoes, the beans, the peppers. Stirred once, twice, a third time. The smell intensified. You optimized for efficiency. We optimized for survival. You built systems. We became them. Kael'thas was still laughing, but it had taken on a brittle quality. That red sludge will be ready in approximately 30 minutes, Dr. Zara announced, consulting a holographic display that materialized above her wrist device. At which point we'll measure its complete inadequacy against proper nutritional standards, and this regrettable exercise will conclude. I assume you're not expecting anyone to actually consume your chili? Marcus set his knife down. He turned to face the observation window where 3 alien scientists and 1 very nervous principal stared back at him. Actually, he said, I'm counting on it. For the first time, Principal Sinara looked genuinely worried. The chili had been simmering for exactly 28 minutes when Marcus picked up a bowl, ladled out a generous serving, and sat down at the demonstration table like he was about to eat his lunch on a Tuesday afternoon. Now, he said, blowing gently across the steaming surface, I'll just walk you through the ingredient profile while... Dr. Zara's wrist device emitted a sound that made everyone in the room flinch. Then another. Then a series of escalating alerts that sounded like a space station having a medical emergency. That's not possible, she whispered, staring at her holographic readout. The display flooded with red. Warnings, numbers cycling so rapidly they blurred. Capsaicin concentration at 85,000 Scoville units. Your species' biological monitors are registering this as a Class 4 neurotoxin, equivalent to mild industrial poison. Marcus took a spoonful, blew on it, ate it. He didn't die. So yeah, he continued cheerfully, like he hadn't just consumed what their instruments insisted was chemical warfare. You've got your base ingredients: tomatoes, kidney beans, cumin, oregano. Medical emergency. We have a medical emergency. Vexthul was already moving, his neural interfaces flickering to life, emergency protocols cascading through the Academy's medical network. Within seconds, holographic screens materialized around Marcus like he was about to become the center of an alien autopsy in real time. Vital signs are normal? That's not. Dr. Zara, his cardiovascular function is completely stable. His neural responses show 0 distress indicators. How is he? He's not, Dr. Zara said flatly. By every metric we possess, that human should be experiencing catastrophic organ failure. The capsaicin alone should have triggered systemic inflammation, neurological damage, possible death. And yet... She trailed off, watching Marcus take another spoonful. Marcus swallowed, actually smiled. This is the good stuff, he said. Ghost peppers, Scotch bonnets, Carolina reapers, my grandmother's recipe from Oaxaca. She used to make this with triple the heat because she said if your mouth wasn't crying, the flavor hadn't won yet. Impossible, Dr. Zara snapped. She was moving now, abandoning the observation window to stride into the kitchen itself. There is no mechanism. Your species has not undergone the genetic modifications required for capsaicin tolerance. You lack the proper receptor mutations. You should not be able to... She gestured wildly at him, still eating. Still breathing. Still entirely not dead. To do this. Kael'thas had gone very quiet. Perhaps a medical intervention, Vexthul suggested, but his voice had changed. The certainty was gone. We can administer the antitoxin protocol immediately. We've used it successfully for 17 different poison compounds. For what? Marcus looked genuinely confused, mid-spoonful. An antitoxin? It's food, buddy. You don't need medical intervention for lunch. The holographic monitors multiplied. Now there were 15 separate analytical systems running simultaneous scans, each one producing contradictory data. One screen insisted his neural pathways were experiencing critical inflammation. Another showed perfect neurological function. A third was suggesting his capsaicin resistance was genetic. A fourth was insisting it was impossible. Dr. Zara pulled up her database, massive, spinning, containing what appeared to be the complete nutritional record of the galaxy. She punched in parameters with increasingly frantic gestures. Tevenarian biology, capsaicin sensitivity, lethal above, 5,000 units. Krellick's physiology, tolerance threshold at 2,000 units, requires genetic adaptation over 3 evolutionary cycles. Human biology, no recorded tolerance, no adaptive markers, no... She looked up from her display, and Marcus could see the moment her certainty shattered. No explanation. Marcus took another spoonful. This time, he chewed slowly, deliberately, making eye contact with Dr. Zara the entire time. "You want to know what's really funny?" he asked. "In human culture, we have a competition called the Carolina Reaper Challenge. Teenagers, not adults, teenagers, consume peppers that are literally 400 times hotter than what I'm eating right now. They do it for social media videos, for fun." He gestured with his spoon. No genetic engineering, no biological modifications, no million-year evolutionary adaptation cycles. Just evolution doing what it does when a species survives in a place with hot peppers for long enough. Kael'thas made a sound. It wasn't his usual chittering laugh. It sounded more like something breaking. "The medical monitors are now in conflict," Vexthul announced, his voice strained. 4 different scanning systems are producing contradictory results. I'm attempting to reconcile the data streams, but they're showing Marcus's body is processing the capsaicin. Normally, like food. His liver is breaking down the alkaloid compounds. His digestive system is managing the inflammatory response through standard metabolic pathways. There's nothing exotic happening. There's nothing technological. He's just eating it. "That's because I am eating it," Marcus said, and now there was laughter underneath the words. Not mockery, something almost gentle. "It's what humans do. We eat things that are dangerous, and our bodies figure out how to handle them. We adapt. We survive. That's the whole point." Dr. Zara stared at her contradictory data streams, watched Marcus continue his meal with the casual satisfaction of someone who'd eaten the same dish 1,000 times, and for the first time in what was clearly a very long scientific career, had absolutely nothing to say. Behind them, every student monitor in the academy was simultaneously registering the same impossible readings, and Marcus was still eating. The emergency medical team arrived in exactly 94 seconds, which was either impressively fast or a testament to how badly the Academy's systems were currently failing. Marcus knew which way the smart money was betting. 4 Tevenarian paramedics burst through the kitchen doors in full hazmat protocol, their biocontainment suits crackling with preventative energy fields. Behind them came 2 Krellick's physicians with scanning equipment, sophisticated enough to map consciousness itself. They took one look at Marcus, still eating, still breathing, still completely alive, and stopped dead. "The patient's vital signs are..." One of the paramedics trailed off, checking and rechecking their instruments. "Perfectly normal," Marcus said cheerfully, offering the ladle toward the nearest medic. "You want some?" "There's plenty. Fair warning, though, your species probably shouldn't, but I'm happy to explain why I can." Dr. Zara made a sound like a hard drive experiencing catastrophic failure. "Explain?" One of the Krellick's physicians stepped forward, her neural interface flickering with obvious conflict. "There is no explanation. According to biochemical standards upheld across 47 civilizations, your body should be experiencing cascading inflammatory response. Your TRPV1 receptors should be firing at lethal intensity. Your thermoregulation should be in total collapse. You should be in agony." Marcus took another bite, chewed thoughtfully. "Yeah, well, here's the thing about those receptors you mentioned. Humans have them too. We have the exact same ones. But here's what your 47 civilizations missed. We evolved in a place where fire peppers grow. Lots of them, for millions of years. And you know what happens when your whole species gets to choose between suffer through the pain and eat anyway, or starve." He gestured with his spoon. "We got really good at suffering through the pain. Vexthul had stopped trying to reconcile his scanning data. Instead, he was staring at Marcus with something that looked disturbingly close to hunger, not for food, but for understanding. That's not how biological adaptation works, he said, but the words sounded like a question now. You can't simply choose tolerance. You don't have the genetic markers. There's no TRPV1 modification in your DNA. Your C nociceptors are standard issue. So how are you? He paused, looked at his instruments, looked back at Marcus. How are you doing that? Because, Marcus said, and now he was looking directly at Vexthul, speaking like one curious mind to another. We didn't change our genes. We changed our brains. Our nervous system learned to interpret the pain differently, to override the alarm response. Your chemistry didn't change. Your psychology did. Your consciousness learned to exist in a state your body was screaming at you to avoid. He took another spoonful, ate it. Evolution doesn't always mean DNA, buddy. Sometimes it just means deciding you're going to survive anyway. Principal Sinara was on her communication device, and Marcus could hear fragments of increasingly frantic conversations with higher authority. Something about unprecedented biological response and entire nutrition science framework compromised, and someone very important asking if they'd check that the human was actually alive. I don't understand, Dr. Zara whispered. And she meant it. Marcus could see the fundamental crisis happening behind her eyes. This wasn't just data contradicting her instruments. This was her entire career of studying biological response mechanisms, discovering it had been operating from incomplete data. We've spent 300 years developing nutrition science. We've mapped the biological response to capsaicin across multiple species. We've documented the toxicological profile. We've assumed everyone reacted the same way, Marcus finished gently. Which, fair enough, makes sense if most species you studied had similar biology. But humans, we came from a planet that was trying to kill us constantly. Extreme temperatures, predators, diseases, and yeah, super hot peppers. So we got really good at surviving things that were trying to hurt us. Sometimes by changing our DNA, sometimes by just deciding it was going to hurt and doing it anyway. Kael'thas had backed away from the table. His peers, the other students who'd come to watch the demonstration with arrogant expectations, were watching him carefully now, waiting to see if he'd taste it, waiting to see if he'd admit that something he'd dismissed as primitive had just shattered his worldview. I'll pass, Kael'thas said stiffly, but his eyes kept flicking to the bowl. One of the paramedics, the brave or stupid one, Marcus wasn't sure which, stepped forward. May I? She asked, her translator doing its best with what sounded like genuine scientific interest replacing the panic. Absolutely, Marcus said. Start small. Trust me. She took a single spoonful, placed it in her mouth with the caution of someone defusing a bomb. Then her expression went through a series of changes: surprise, mild discomfort, confusion, and finally, something that might have been grudging respect. It's not killing me, she said wonderingly. Nope, Marcus said. But it tastes good, right? She nodded, then reached for another spoonful. The scientific hierarchy of the academy was collapsing in real time. All the instruments that were supposed to explain the universe were contradicting each other. All the theories that were supposed to be universal were proving to have blind spots the size of entire planetary systems. And somewhere in the middle of it all, humans had just casually demonstrated that primitive sometimes meant we survive things that would kill your entire species. Dr. Zara sat down right there in the middle of the kitchen, her three-fingered hands trembling slightly as she pulled up her database again, this time with the expression of someone looking for everything they'd missed. We need to rewrite the entire nutritional science framework, she said quietly. Don't we? Marcus took another bite of his chili. Yeah, he said, but first you should probably try some. Dr. Zara took the bowl Marcus offered. She didn't eat it immediately. She just held it, staring into the reddish depths like she was looking at the physical manifestation of her own ignorance, which, technically, she was. "Walk us through it," she said quietly, not a command, a request. "I need to understand where our science went wrong." Marcus pulled up a stool and sat beside her. For the first time since this had all started, he looked like what he actually was. Not a primitive human stumbling through an advanced academy, but a teacher who'd been waiting for his students to be ready to learn. "Earth," he began, "is a planet that evolved to actively try to kill everything on it. We're talking extremes that would horrify a biology textbook. Deserts hotter than your synthetic nutrient factories. Jungles with enough predators to make you question evolution itself. Diseases that rewrite themselves faster than your medical teams can catalog them." He gestured toward the chili. "And plants. Thousands of plant species that evolved chemical defenses specifically to poison anything that tried to eat them, capsaicin being one of the most successful." "So you learned to avoid them," Vexthul said, but there was no certainty in his voice anymore. There was only curiosity. "No," Marcus said. "We learned to eat them anyway." He stood and moved to the wall display, pulling up a holographic projection that Dr. Zara hadn't authorized. The Academy's AI seemed confused but obliged. What appeared was Earth, not the clean, sterile version that appeared in most galactic databases, but the real thing. Volcanic regions, storm systems the size of continents, ecosystems competing for survival. "Capsaicin serves zero nutritional purpose," Marcus explained, his fingers moving through the projection. "It doesn't provide calories. It doesn't contain essential vitamins. All it does is cause pain. But here's what it does do. It triggers an immune response that humans learned to process. It creates neural pathways that our brains interpreted as a reward. Millions of years of eating hot peppers, generation after generation, and our bodies said, 'Okay, if we're doing this anyway, let's learn to love it.'" He pulled up genetic markers, human DNA compared directly to Tevenarian and Krellic sequences. "Your species optimized for efficiency," he continued. "You eliminated pain. You engineered comfort. You standardized biology so that every individual of your species would experience the universe in almost identical ways. That's brilliant. That's logical. That's also fragile." Dr. Zara was staring at the genetic comparisons, her three-fingered hands trembling slightly. "Our diversity index is minimal," Marcus finished. "Which means your species is incredibly advanced, but only along specific paths. Humans? We're all over the place. Some of us are cold-resistant. Some of us have different pain thresholds. Some of us have developed tolerance to compounds that should kill us. We're genetically chaotic. That seems primitive to you because you've optimized yourselves to death. Not literally, but culturally. You've made yourselves perfect at existing within the parameters you've defined. But the second the parameters change, you have no backup plan." Kael'thas was still standing apart from the group, his arms crossed, his neural interface flickering with data he wasn't sharing. But he was listening. More importantly, he was thinking. "Human tolerance to capsaicin," Marcus said, pulling up more data, "isn't luck. It's not primitive. It's evidence of a species that spent millions of years learning to metabolize dangerous compounds as food. We didn't engineer this. We survived it. Every human alive represents an unbroken line of ancestors who ate things that should have killed them and figured out how to keep living anyway." He turned to face the whole room. "That chili? That's not primitive food. That's a map of survival. Every spice, every ingredient represents a solution to a problem your civilization never had to solve. You didn't need to learn tolerance because you engineered away the need. We learned because the alternative was starvation." Vexthul stood. He walked to the bowl Dr. Zara was still holding. He looked at Marcus. "May I?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Go ahead." Vexthul took the spoon. He filled it carefully. He brought it to his mouth with the precision of someone handling something sacred. Then he ate. The moment passed. He didn't convulse. He didn't die. Instead, his expression shifted through confusion to something that looked almost like understanding. "I can taste it," he whispered. "Underneath the pain, there's flavor. There's complexity. There's—" He looked at Marcus. "There's intelligence in this. Someone put thought into this. Someone understood how these compounds interact. Someone survived," Marcus said gently, "and made something beautiful out of survival." Dr. Zara set the bowl down very carefully. When she looked up at Marcus, her eyes carried something that looked like genuine respect. "Our science assumed universal constants," she said. "We built our understanding on the principle that biology follows discoverable laws that apply everywhere. We never considered—" She paused. "We never considered that some species might not follow those laws because they'd never needed to." "Exactly," Marcus said. "Your superior science is built on a planet where you optimized yourself for perfection. Mine is built on a planet that was actively hostile, so we learned to thrive in chaos. Neither one is better. They're just different solutions to different problems." Kael'thas made a sound, not a laugh this time, but something like a concession. "I'd like to try it," he said quietly. Marcus smiled and handed him the bowl. As Kael'thas took his first tentative spoonful, Marcus caught sight of Principal Sinara through the observation window. She was no longer worried. She was taking notes, furiously. The Interspecies educational program, it seemed, had just gotten a lot more interesting. "All emergency protocols are hereby suspended," Principal Sinara announced, her voice carrying through every communication channel in the academy. She was standing in the kitchen doorway now, her administrative interface glowing with the weight of institutional decisions. "The medical situation is resolved. The human is demonstrating normal biological function. And apparently, we've just witnessed the most significant educational moment this academy has experienced in 40 years. She paused, making direct eye contact with Marcus. "Continued culinary demonstration is approved. Full curriculum integration pending." Dr. Zara was already moving, her earlier paralysis transformed into something resembling scientific hunger. She pulled up her communication interface, her 3 fingers flying across holographic controls. "I'm requesting official collaboration status," she said to Marcus, her voice steady but carrying an edge of genuine excitement. "A comprehensive study of human nutritional adaptation, cross-referenced with your species' evolutionary history. We need to understand the mechanisms. We need to document the genetic diversity. We need to—" She paused, correcting herself. "We need to learn properly, with intellectual honesty." "Happy to help," Marcus said, already turning back to his prep station. "But first, let me teach you how seasoning actually works." He pulled out an array of spices: cumin, oregano, cilantro, smoked paprika, chili powder, fresh garlic, fresh onion. He arranged them with the careful precision of someone who understood that science and cooking were really the same thing, understanding how components interacted to create results. "See, this is where most of your analysis fails," he continued, grinding fresh cumin into a small bowl. "You look at capsaicin in isolation. You measure it. You quantify it. You build protocols around it. But that's not how humans experience food. We layer compounds. We create complexity. Capsaicin by itself is pain, but capsaicin with cumin, oregano, garlic, tomato paste, suddenly it becomes something different. The compounds interact. Your pain receptors get confused. Your brain starts interpreting the sensation as pleasure instead of warning." He looked up from his work. "That's not primitive. That's neuroscience through flavor. That's chemistry serving experience. That's evolution teaching us how to transform suffering into art." Vexithul had his note-taking interface active, recording everything. "The methodology is sound," he murmured, watching Marcus work. "You're not just preparing food. You're demonstrating biochemical principles through practical application." "Exactly," Marcus said. "And yeah, I can give you the recipe. But the recipe isn't the important part." The important part is understanding that your species never had to develop the framework for this kind of thinking because you eliminated the conditions that make it necessary. Kael'thas was standing closer now, watching Marcus work with an intensity that had completely replaced his earlier arrogance. When Marcus offered him a spoon to taste the cumin base, no heat, just pure savory complexity, Kael'thas took it without hesitation. His expression shifted, not dramatically, but genuinely. "There's sophistication here," he admitted, his voice carrying something that sounded almost like awe. "I thought I understood food, optimal nutrition delivery, perfectly balanced macronutrient ratios, but this," he gestured at the spice array, "this is pursuing quality in a way my species never conceived of. We eliminated suffering. You learned to transcend it." "Welcome to being humbled," Marcus said, and there was no mockery in it, just kindness. "Your species optimized for correctness. Mine optimized for resilience. That's not a hierarchy, that's just different evolutionary paths." Principal Sinara was taking everything down now, her administrative interface flickering with notes and protocols. Behind her, Marcus caught sight of 3 more Academy personnel arriving. Not medical teams this time, but researchers. Documentation specialists, people authorized to record what was happening here. The word was already spreading. "Tomorrow," Marcus said, moving to the cooking preparation area, "I'm planning a lesson on mole sauce. It uses like 30 different ingredients, some of them botanically incompatible with your standard nutrition models. You're all going to hate it theoretically and love it practically. We can call it a comprehensive study of sensory preference versus metabolic expectation." Dr. Zara actually smiled. "I'll bring my entire research team." "I'll document the entire process," Vexthul added, "for the official record. This should be part of every academy curriculum." Kael'thas was quiet for a moment. Then, "Will you teach us to cook it? Properly, I mean, the way your culture does it?" Marcus looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine curiosity where there had been only dismissal an hour ago. "Yeah," he said, "I'll teach you. Everyone." He turned back to his prep station, pulling out his ingredients for tomorrow's preparation. Dried chilies, cinnamon, chocolate, almonds, sesame seeds. The works. He began chopping with the ease of someone who'd done this 10,000 times and would do it 10,000 more without complaint. "You know what's funny?" he said, his knife finding its rhythm against the cutting board. "In human cultures, teaching someone to cook is the highest form of respect. It's how we pass down survival, how we share what kept our ancestors alive. And I'm genuinely honored that you all want to learn." He chuckled, a real unguarded sound. "Though I gotta say, from where I'm standing, you're the ones who've been eating primitive food. You've been eating the same optimized nutrient matrix for what, 300 years? At least I get variety." Behind him, Dr. Zara was laughing. Actually laughing. Vexthul was making notes faster. Kael'thas was watching Marcus work with the expression of someone who'd just realized they'd been staring at a map of the universe without understanding it was upside down. Principal Sinara was already composing her report to Galactic Education Authority. The Interspecies Academy's first culinary exchange has revealed significant gaps in universal nutritional science paradigms, recommended action, immediate curriculum restructuring, and comprehensive human cultural integration study. And Marcus Webb, human culinary teacher, kept chopping peppers for tomorrow's lesson, humming something his grandmother had taught him, exactly like it was just another Tuesday. Which, for him, it kind of was. The universe, however, had just learned something it would never forget. You could engineer a species to perfection, optimize it for efficiency, standardize it for maximum output, but you could never engineer the kind of resilience that came from a world that had been actively trying to kill you. Humans had learned to thrive in that chaos, and now, so would everyone else.